Imhotep, African family. Welcome to the Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. For the purpose of the recording, I am Dr. Nteri Nelson, a metaphysician, licensed clinician, and educator, and co-founder of the Academy of Kemetic Education and Wellness. And having said all that, you know, there's always the backdrop of the time we're in that we must examine as a preface and a backdrop. And so now we know, beloveds, that we've been in the pandemics that we have talked about. And in this lighted service, Building the Lighted Temple Wisdom Service, it's not the pandemic of COVID that I began with. I talked about the pandemic beginning with white supremacy. And then we moved to the second pandemic, which is the pandemic, which is being called COVID-19. But the third pandemic, which we talked about, beloveds, is now the full externalization of all the impacts that have happened planetary-wide because of the white supremacist paradigm that has gripped our planet and been part of this grip of this material consciousness that we are in as we move to the re-spiritualization of consciousness cycle in this dimensional shift we are in. But now, beloveds, here we are. You know what I'm going to say. We are now in our fourth pandemic that has now raising its ugly head, and that is the pandemic of war. And warring among what? Warring among themselves. That's what we are seeing now in this bid for a deepening in this material and materialization conquering this material conquering that is spurring this warring. And you know, there was the material in this white supremacist paradigm. There's been that material conquering of Africa and in India and you know, Australia, you know, other parts of the world, and here now it's coming back upon that same energy is coming back upon the European nations, which will ultimately impact the world, because what happens with the European nations will ultimately affects the whole world. And I want to just bring your attention as we start this to talk about the Ba soul life and seeming death. This want to show you a couple of news clips. One, both about Putin, because it would have been important to listen to what upset him so, and would appear to me to have been the straw that broke the camel's back for him. I haven't seen, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence. But I haven't seen anyone make this connection. But Putin told us what he was upset about. He he was outraged that the markets for the vaccine were not level playing fields, and he felt left out. And I'm going to just take you there now to show you the clips. And you be the observers. You see what your conclusion is. Because let me just now, okay. So when I first show you this one, can you see that it says dishonest competition? Can you just
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now just do the math with me. All right. I'll just read this quickly. Dishonest competition. Putin lashes out at G20 over vaccines. Russia's President Vladimir Putin complains about a lack of international recognition for its Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine at the G20 summit. You know, what set him off? You know, what set him off? Now we have a date of October 21st here. Russia, it says, Putin urged G20 health ministers to discuss the mutual recognition, you know, just like when the, I'll finish reading it. Putin urged G20 health ministers to discuss the mutual recognition of vaccines and vaccination certificates as soon as possible. All right, so this is mutual recognition of vaccines. October 2021. Russia has complained about the lack of international recognition for its Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine at a G20 summit, where leaders agreed to step up global inoculation efforts. Now, I'll tell you one thing, with this war going on, we're not going to hear a whole lot about this effort now, because this is eclipsing that. This is a strategic move that will eclipse that effort to vaccinate the world, right? In an apparent reference to failure of Russia's Sputnik V to win foreign regulatory approval. See, he didn't get the approval, right? President Vladimir Putin on Saturday urged G20 health ministers to discuss the mutual recognition of vaccines and vaccination certificates as soon as possible. In other words, this has all the same language as the Berlin Conference, where the Pope then, as Europeans were going into Africa, the Dutch, the British, the Germans, and because they started fighting among themselves, and then the Pope said, "Now you good Christians, there's plenty for everyone. Don't fight among yourselves." The papal bull. Google, read on your own the papal bull. So look at this language. Urge health minister to discuss the mutual, like just we all should be having this pie, what, you know, of vaccines and vaccination certificates as soon as possible. Despite the decisions of the G20, not all countries in need can have access to anti-COVID vaccines. Putin said in a video message, comments to counterparts that were transmitted on a Russian state television. This happens mainly because of dishonest competition. See, you know, the Pope, Papa Bull said, you good Christians, don't fight among yourselves. This happens mainly because of dishonest competition, protectionism, and because some states, especially those of the G20, are not ready for mutual recognition of vaccines and vaccine certificates. This is powerful stuff. This is powerful. Now this hits more home, right? Because I'll read it. Early this month, South Africa refused to approve the Russian jab, despite the country's dire need for vaccines, claiming it could increase the risk of HIV infection among men. So we got it, you know, despite the white supremacist paradigm, there are those who've gotten the education, gotten themselves in those places of power, even were the ones who detected the variant, right? And said, oh, no, we can't have that type of Russian jab because it's going to increase HIV. Anyway, Sputnik V also lacks regulatory approval in the European Union and the United States. And then we hear finally, I don't think I'll read the whole thing, or maybe one more paragraph. Chinese President Xi Jinping, who, like Putin, did not travel to Rome for the G20 summit and participated by video link, made a similar call for the mutual recognition of vaccines, according to Chinese. So this mutual thing, right, is mutual. And now all the while cases are rising. Putin and Xi were said to have avoided travel to Italy because of tightening coronavirus restrictions. The cases in October in Russia were off the charts. Russian authorities said the daily infection numbers had risen to 40,251, a record for the country since the start of the pandemic, with only 32% of the population fully vaccinated. Now, if you're trying to get your population fully vaccinated and only 32, you got time to start war? I mean, you know, how do you shift from the jab to the tanks? Because this is interesting psychology. If it's so urgent and dire, how you get deflected from inoculating your own people to go fight a war, right? All right. Russia's health minister will recommend using the Sputnik vaccine only as a booster for people who have already been vaccinated. Russian news agencies cited the health minister. And so this is these concoctions, the 1, the 2, and the boosters, and the first and the second, and it's interesting mix of things. But hold those thoughts, hold on to that while we shift to this clip. Can you see this clip that says satellite? Let's see, not that one. Oh yeah, it does. This is the one we want. Satellite pic shows Russia bolstering forces along Ukraine border. Can you see that, beloveds?
Yes.
All right. So look at the timing. So that was in October, right? So I'm going to make this point. It says satellite pics show Russia bolstering forces along Ukraine border. You can see this, Rosangela? Good. Okay, good. Now, remember we said October back there, right? Okay. So Russia continues to bolster its forces along the Ukrainian border, adding hundreds of tanks and armored vehicles, even as President Vladimir Putin demands security guarantees from the United States, according to report. Reuters reported Friday that new satellite images from US-based Maxar Technologies show an increased buildup of forces in Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. Russia began sending forces and heavy military equipment to its western border with Ukraine in April and has amassed as many as 175,000 troops, an escalation that the US believes is an indication of an imminent invasion. The images Maxar released Thursday show a base in Crimea. This is it, beloveds, filled with armored vehicles and tanks as of December 13th, according to Rutgers. So that's, here we are, February, right? The same base, hello, beloveds, was half empty in images taken in what month? October. They broke this is the straw that broke the camel's back. So we go from, no real tanks here in these images to all these tanks. Interesting. And because so I'm going to come back. So how are we understanding Ba, the soul in its journey, life, and all those seeming appearances in life, because we're having these seeming appearances now with all that is going on in the world. We had the seeming appearance of George Floyd. We had to be witness to that, right? So now we're having the seeming appearance of this fourth pandemic, which is now war. Not that there weren't wars going on in other places, but this will be the war of wars. We know this has all the potential for being World War III, being, you know, the potential for nuclear use of nuclear weaponry. Very serious moment that we're in. There's even this piece of equipment that it has a special name that has the power to suck the oxygen. And again, we're back to that element of air at this time, in this age of Aquarius, that sucks the oxygen out of everyone in its range. So you don't have to go in and ferret people out of their hiding spaces. You just put this machine and it sucks the oxygen in this mass range. So this, they're threatening to disrupt their banking system, Putin's access to all the networks. Now, when you think about all that banking system, including that that SWIFT World Bank, because that's how they enter into their current, that's their currency. It's the material currency, because what spirit is matter at its lowest level of vibration, and matter is spirit at its highest level of vibration. All is spirit. So we tap into the noon. We're tapping into noon for our renewal. And in a material consciousness paradigm, there is this tapping into that material currency. So when you want to cut Putin out of it, that new market of, because he's not with Gates, he's not one of the players. You want to, well, this is the fury that's being unleashed. This is the fury, because there's been the conquering and the taking of human cargo. You know, when you think about production, Africans were the first widgets to come down the assembly line. We were the first widgets on the assembly line, as graphically as that might be expressed. And then, because we made the wealth for the world, in every country, Britain, Dutch, Denmark, Germany, all the countries benefited from that initial product, the human cargo out of Africa. Then they went back and divided the Berlin Conference and divided Africa up like a pie, and then took all the resources, you know, and continuing to take the resources today. You know, so we have this so-called industrial revolution, and everybody has all the gadgetry that they could possibly have. But where are we now in this moment? Well, the idea was to get that gadgetry in every home. That's what Bill Gates said. He would get a computer in every home, and he's done so. And then the next is to get a cell phone in every hand. And that people are out farming and they don't even have, they're in huts and they got a cell phone, right? Yeah. And now we would be a foolish people because with all this AI, this artificial intelligence, the next industry is not taking human cargo out of Africa, although that is still, there's slave trade going on in this world, we know that. But it is co-opting the immune system. And that's going to be a big moneymaker. And we are witness to see, for those who see, I mean, you can look at the dates for yourself of what broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Because there was no tanks there until Putin lashed out at that summit, about that summit, by not having this, in his own words, well, how does he describe it? That shared benefit of co-opting and controlling in that material paradigm. So I wish I could hear comments from folks. I could look in the chat and see what there may be in response to what I've been saying, because I know I can't hear you and you can hear me, and that's good. That's all that was required today. Did everybody hear? Was everybody able to hear? Huh? Okay, everybody was able to hear. All right. So these are troubled times, and they're, you know, the impacts that are going on in, you know, now per this Russian invasion are going to be felt all around the world. And so Abba, and it's the soul in its journey, we want to steep ourselves in the primal wisdom and really anchor ourselves in that primal source, that we may know all the ways to, as we have been ordained to be the ever-coming ones, and to be here through eternity. That's what our African ancestors have taught us, that we are eternal. We are the ever-coming ones. And let me just see what's in the chat, because maybe there's something in the chat. Martha says, we are too far removed from nature. Yes. Yes. And Roderick says, yes. And Horace says, a computer in every home, a cell phone in every hand, and a needle in every arm. What are the implications? Yes, Horace. Yeah, you always have a way of just being brief but full, very, very full. And Kathy says, control us. So yes, a computer in every home, a cell phone in every hand, and a needle in every arm. What are the implications? And so this is quite the moment. This is quite the moment. And again, beloveds, never be perplexed or bewildered or lose your composure when you have a moment like this, like we're having now, because just do your best to just keep going. Just and even whatever your moment is, let your last gesture, your last effort, your last breath be to point the way, to say, to like Kwame Nkrumah, like that's the way. Keep going forward. That's the way. And so we, much has been said. Look at those articles on your own. Look at the timing. And I guess on a final note, because we're at that time at 12:15, and hopefully everything will be up working next week, because we are going to take the deepest of immersions into the noon, into the primal waters, to get our sustenance for now, our supply. We aren't working with any derivatives. We don't want any synthetics. We don't want no dumbed down version of, we need the most potent force and source for our nourishment. But notice going forward between this week and the next, what the ratio is of war images and media versus COVID, because Putin has strategically eclipsed this conversation. You ain't talking about that. You're not going any further if I'm not at the table. And I guess there wasn't this Pope, the papal bull, the Pope at the time, who could calm the feathers. He said, you good Christians, don't fight among yourselves, because they were fighting over Africa. They arranged a Berlin conference more than once. They had those meetings, but now the fight, and look at France went there to try to smooth the feathers. Macron and Biden tried to smooth the feathers. There's no papal bull who's moving the feathers now, and saying, look, there's plenty for everybody. Obviously, when you get to a certain level of greed, you don't think that there can be plenty for everybody. You just don't think that there could be plenty for everybody. Look at those dates. Is that a coincidence? Look at the dates. Now, he was already unhinged, like Trump is unhinged, but they really fired him up and unleashed the monster. They unleashed the monster. So we have our work to do. Be steadfast and assured that our day, our greatest moment of service has arrived, and that we are prepared, and that we are on the rise. We are on the rise, and there's no stopping that rise. The shade is going up. I talk about this in chapter 17. The shade is going up. The ancestors watched it go down. As we went into this material consciousness cycle, that we are in the bottom, in the vertex of the V, in its deepest dip into material consciousness. We were the ancestors who saw that. And now we are the same ancestors now watching that shade rise. We just have to get through this very narrow middle passage. Or the eye of the what do they say? The needle, can the camel get through the eye of the needle? Well, that's where we're at. And be of good cheer. I mean, hey, listen, I'm of the consciousness that, if I'm on a plane and the plane is going down, I want to watch everything. I want to see what's going on. Be of good cheer and do your level best. That's, each and every day, do your level best. Fear is not a part of our vocabulary. And we don't say, I'm going to try. We say, I will it to be so. And so it is, and so may it be done. And Darius says, thank you, Dr. I remember when there was news broadcast early on about, let me look at this so I can read the rest of this. Miss Darius says, thank you, Dr. Nteri. I remember when there was a news broadcast early on about their early findings as well. Then it fizzled. If not mistaken, it was on CNN or NBC. Yes. Yes. And in the early findings on when he began to amass those armaments and
yes.
if you find news sources that make those connections, please send them to me, because I don't think that this connection is supposed to be made. That, you know, because this was supposed to be the next widgets. You got to put that AI, all that artificial intelligence that's being made. You got to have candidates who can host it. We got it in our hand. We got it in our home. We got it in our hand. Now, what's the next step? What could happen next? I don't know. But put it into perspective. Yes. Okay. Yes, he says put it into perspective. The great Horace says, the great mother is the great water, the noon. When she is venerated, we will have our power again. Well said, beloved. Well expressed, Horace. So I look forward to seeing each and every one of you tell others about the Building a Lighted Temple Wisdom Service. Today might have sounded more intense because it is. You know, when you have 4 pandemics going on, I guess it is an intense time. We knew that. And so we know that this is no game we play, but we are still of good cheer, and we're serious. We're getting things done, and we know we're ready, and we know it's our day. It's our time to rise. So we just, and with all deliberate speed, keep moving forward, and let's make this dimensional shift into the greater light, into the re-spiritualization of our planet. All right, see you next Sunday. I will look to have the technology up and working, but this is a perfect demonstration of what I mean. And that is the very moment in which you have to be your strongest, because this type of thing can happen at the moment when you are ready to reveal. And you have to keep your composure. Peace and blessings, beloved. Take care.